welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a little reading vlog. This is like my first vlog style video, but I really enjoy watching them, especially ones around like a certain theme. So I decided to give it a try and see how I liked making them and kind of documenting a bit more of my life. This vlog is centered around some of my fall reading. I figured I'd just vlog as I read the three of them. I have The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I am in the middle of this one. I'm like 80 pages in, or 70 pages in, and really liking it so far. This is like a haunted house story. It follows this group of people and they're invited to a haunted mansion by a doctor of psychology who wants to like study the supernatural elements that are in the house. I've only gotten to the point of them all being on the property, so haven't gotten it to any of the spookiness yet, but Jackson does such a good job of like setting up the eeriness of the scene. Like the minute they all arrive at Hill House, they're like disgusted by and unsettled by the mansion. She does such a wonderful job of like painting how uncomfortable Eleanor, like who's one of the main character, is in the house, and like it makes you feel just like uncomfortable. And there's a lot of like foreshadowing and like setting up for like clearly some like spooky things that are gonna happen. So I am really liking this. I'm finding it difficult to pick up. It's like once I pick it up and I start reading it, I'm like really enjoying it, but I'm just like struggling a little bit with like just getting the activation energy to like pick up the book. But it's pretty short, so I can bang it out in a couple of reads. Then let's chat about Perfume by Patrick Suskind. This is a German novel. It takes place in the 1700s, though, in France. It follows this man who has an insane sense of smell, and he becomes obsessed with the idea of like bottling the sense of innocence. So like he goes through life cataloging all of the smells that he has, and he keeps like a list in his head of like everything that he has ever smelled and like the combinations that they make, and he can pull out like very distinct threads of smells when he is in like the street or at a market or something. And so one day he like smells a young woman and he like follows the scent until he finds her, and he like murders her because he like wants to own that scent. Like that all happens in the beginning of the book. I'm like 50 pages in, I want to say. The descriptions of smells are like so, I mean, they're like disgusting, but they're also like so well done that it's so intriguing. So I am enjoying it. I put it down because there was like a little tangent that the story went on, and I just wasn't interested or cared about the tangent. I don't think that the tangent will last long, so I just need to get back into it so I can get back to the main character, Grenouille, his name is. And then the last book for this vlog, I have Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tarkozuk, translated from the Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. Yeah, so this is a Polish novel. It's more recently published, and it follows a older woman who lives like a very reclusive life in like this Polish village, and she ends up a suspect in some string of weird murders near where she lives. I haven't started this one at all, so I don't really know what it's like. A lot of people comment on my videos and say that it's like one of the weirdest, strangest books that they've ever read, but it is so good. So very excited about that, obviously. So yeah, I'm going to eat dinner now, and I think I'm actually not going to read. I'm going to knit instead and watch YouTube videos. My brain is a little cooked from work today, so I just need like some kind of brain off activity. I'm working on, I can show you, it's the Champagne Cardigan by Petite Knit. I feel like it's a little oversized, like it's a little bit bigger than what she has it laid out. My gauge just might be off for it, so that is probably why. But I think that's okay. Like a nice oversized cardigan, and like the yarn is like this like teddy bear like color. So I feel like having like a teddy bear blanket cardigan is perfect. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Hello. It has been 2 days, technically, 2 sleeps, since I updated you. But the first night, I literally just knitted the whole night. I did not read at all, but I got some good progress on my cardigan. And then the next day, I did finally get some reading in. I went and sat outside for a while, and then I just read at home. Updating on my thoughts on The Haunting of Hill House. I'm really, really loving it. I was watching this CSAP video where he was like, all that matters in a book is if it's a good story, if the story is told well, if it's good storytelling. And I think this book is just really good storytelling. I know I read some like reviews and some people were saying like the story is just really, really simple. Like it's just your basic haunted house ghost story, and like I haven't finished it, but I get that like there's not a ton that's happening, but Jackson is just telling the story really, really well. It feels very eerie and creepy walking around the house. There's ghostly stuff happening. I was getting freaked out. I couldn't read like late last night. I had to stop and like knit instead because I was like and I don't usually get scared with books. Not that I really read that many horror books, but movies I can be a big scaredy cat with, but books usually like, I don't know, they just don't. I need the visual to be scared, I guess. But I was definitely freaked out reading some scenes here. And I think I also really, really like the characters and their like interactions with each other. This book was written, and when was it first published? 1959. Yeah, I feel like this like time period, this specific few like decades, it can be hard for me for some media, especially like movies from like the 50s and the 60s. I'm always a little like something about the characters' interactions. They're like formal, but they feel modern enough that I'm like, why are you so formal? Whereas like I don't have that problem with media from like the 1800s. Maybe because I'm like expecting it to be more formal. Also, like in some movies, the general like sexism in them and like how blatant it is so like ick that I just struggle a little bit with them. And like the way characters are just like represented, I feel like I guess characters feel very like one dimensional is maybe what it is, because there's just generally a lack of like expressing yourself. So, but I don't feel like that with this book. I really like the characters in this book. You follow four of them. There's Eleanor and Theodora, who are kind of like the two main characters. They are both invited to Hill House because they have like previous supernatural experiences. There's also Luke, who is the heir of Hill House, and Dr. Montague, who invited all of them to stay because he's studying the supernatural effects in the house. And so Eleanor and Theodora are the two like main characters, and particularly Eleanor, and I really think they're so well done. Their interactions are so interesting. Their friendship is so interesting. And I just think the dialogue between all four of them is so interesting. They're very quippy. They kind of make fun of like the gender and social constructs that I was just complaining about. Like, they're like, oh, we'll have a parlor. And Theodora's like, where I pull up my like needle point and I like call on people. And Luca's like, I'll go be a degenerate in the billiards room or whatever. So it's quite funny. And I just think their like back and forth between all four of the characters is really great. On the back, it says, what begins as a lighthearted experiment is swiftly proven to be a trip into their darkest nightmares. And I feel like I'm just at the turning point of it going into their darkest nightmares. So I need to finish this before it gets dark out. Might not. We'll see. It's been a few days since I last updated, mostly because I haven't been doing a ton of reading. A few days ago, the Northern Lights were like visible where I live, and so we spent like hours outside looking at the sky, and we got some really cool pictures. I can like show them here. Like we could even see like the pink and the green like with our naked eye, which was absolutely insane. So we just stood out there for like hours and hours. And then I went to Oktoberfest in downtown and this Halloween pop-up bar, and it had like themed drinks and lots of spooky decor. So it was very cute and fun to go to. But ultimately, I didn't do a ton of reading. I did, however, finish The Haunting of Hill House. So I have an update now. And overall, I did really enjoy it. I think that if you want like a horror book with a lot going on and like a lot of jump scares, a lot of ghosts and spookiness all throughout, like maybe this book isn't going to be a satisfying read. There's definitely some very scary scenes, but I just don't think of it as like a classic horror. Well, it is a classic horror novel, but it's just not like one that's going to terrify you. The depth of the novel isn't really in the scary pieces, it's more in the main character. I think this book is really about Eleanor and how she is a very isolated woman. She spent most of her life taking care of her sick mother. And after her mother passed, she didn't have much of a life to her. And so that's kind of one of the reasons that pushes her to go to Hill House, is to have something to do and to be a part of a group. You watch her slowly get consumed by Hill House, because Hill House is almost like a character in and of itself, in the way it's constructed and in the way it moves. You wonder how much of the ghosts are ghosts and how much of it is just Hill House. The story is told in like third person narrative, so it's not in one person's head, but you're really only told the story through Eleanor's perspective. But since it's third person, it's almost like it's hard to see that it's just her. As you're going through the story and you're seeing the ghost tales, or she's like reacting to people or having these like anxious, paranoid thoughts about other people, you realize that like maybe that's not happening, maybe that's just in her head. And so how much of it is in her head? Is she going crazy? That kind of classic unreliable narrator. I do think Jackson just writes such like eerie psychological horror, in the sense that like the ghosts and the haunted house isn't the scary part. The true horror is never finding a place where you belong. So I think this is a book that like after I finished it and I sat with it and I thought about what it was really about and what was really going on, because this book like surprised me. It wasn't, the ending in the second half wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I needed to sit with it and better understand the story and the characters and what Jackson was trying to do with her story. What was the point of her story? Reading about it online and reading about Jackson's life herself was very helpful and really built up the novel for me. So yeah, I would say if you're just looking for like a quick, easy, spooky read, I don't know if this one's going to be super satisfying for you. I did really like it, but I just don't know if it's going to have like that kind of vibe, if that's what you're after. So that is one book done. I picked for Perfume back up, but I only read like maybe 15 pages, and I got through that little side plot piece that was bothering me. So I'm back to the main story. So full steam ahead, ready to get into this one. I made some like cherry vanilla syrup to put in my lattes because I saw it on TikTok and I thought it would be cute to make coffee syrups. So that is what I'm drinking today. It's really good. Okay, so I finished Perfume and I have a few thoughts on it. Overall, I enjoyed this one a lot less than The Haunting of Hill House. It was like just okay. There were like two main reasons for that. One, the writing style was, for me, like overdone. It's extremely, extremely descriptive. Everything in this novel is described 3 times, like literally within a sentence. He'll be like, it smelled like this, it smelled like that, it smelled like that. I'll read a part for you. She already smells better now, Grenouille thought, than that girl did back then in the Rue de Marais. Not as robust, not as voluminous, but more refined, more richly nuanced, and at the same time more natural. In a year or two, the scent will be ripened and take on a gravity that no one, man or woman, will be able to escape. People will be overwhelmed, disarmed, helpless before the magic of this girl, and they will not know why. And because people are stupid and use their noses only for blowing, but believe absolutely anything they see with their eyes, they will say it is because this is a girl with beauty and grace and charm. In their obtuseness, they will praise the evenness of her features, her slender figure, her faultless breasts, and her eyes, they will say, are like emeralds, and her teeth like pearls, and her limbs smooth as ivory, and all those other idiotic comparisons. And they will elect her Queen of the Jasmine, and she will be painted by stupid portraitists. Her picture will be ogled, and people will say that she is the most beautiful woman in France, and to the strains of Madeleines, youths will howl at the night away sitting beneath her window. Rich, fat old men will skid about on their knees begging her father for her hand. And women of every age will sigh at the sight of her in their sleep, dream of looking as alluring as she for just one day, and none of them will know that it is truly not how she looks that has captured them, nor her reputed, unblemished external beauty, but solely her incomparable, splendid scent. Only he would know that, only Grenouille, he alone, he knew it already, in fact. Like, you see what I mean? Every single sentence, every point that they're trying to make in the story is just repeated 3 times over. The whole story is like that, and it's interesting. Like, I do feel like it kind of works for the story that's being told, the emphasis on scent and smelling things. So descriptors are really, really important for that. But it just got like a little grating over time for me personally. I will say that like the vocabulary used in this book is extremely robust, which I actually kind of liked. He used the word olfactory. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've never come across this word before. It just means relating to scent. But like, he used this one word, I like every other page. It was olfactory this, olfactory that, and it really stuck out to me and really annoyed me, which is kind of petty, but I don't know. The second thing that kind of put me off the book was it was first described to me as a novel about a man with incredible scent who wants to bottle the scent of innocence. That part of the book is literally only the last like 50 pages. The first 200 pages are just following Grenouille grow up. He tries to learn perfumery and just how to make scents in and of themselves. Yeah, it's more just like him trying to grapple with this world where he feels very like on the outside of, and trying to understand human nature through scents, which I feel like the whole time I was expecting it to be more about the bottling of innocence, and it isn't so much about that, so it really threw me off. The ending to this book is absolutely wild. I had to reread sentences to make sure that I actually was like understanding what was going on, and because it was so crazy plot things happening that I was like, I don't know whether or not I like the ending. Part of it I didn't like, part of it I did like. That is Perfume. 2 books down, 1 to go. I am so excited. I'm so excited to start Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. I already read, but I only read like 5 pages, so I have no thoughts yet, but just very excited for this one. read a significant chunk of Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. I'm like almost 50% of the way through, and I'm really, really enjoying it. The main character was written, like, described as peculiar on the back, and this, like, for some reason made me think she would be like a little unlikable, like she would be kooky and like a little off-putting, and she's definitely like kind of out there, but I think that Olga does a really great job of constructing the main character. There's a very strong narrative voice throughout the story, and you can really see the main character's like feelings, and you kind of dive into her like perspective on the world. She really muses on how she sees things, how she has certain morals, and just kind of how she views the world. She has a very interesting perspective on a couple of things. Her main thing is that she loves animals, and that's like the kind of main conflict. There's a hunting group who regularly, obviously, hunts the animals in her kind of area, and she's constantly combating with them because she doesn't want them to kill any animals at all. And I guess the plot kind of moves forward as like these murders are occurring throughout her neighborhood that she's getting pulled into. Like, she thinks that it's animals who are taking their revenge against people who have mistreated them. And she's kind of sharing her theories with people, but they're all very taken aback and off-put by her thoughts on the world, which I think makes her more of an outsider and more suspicious to them because she's so different from them. Another like little thing of her personality is she doesn't like names. Like, she doesn't think that anybody's name or her own name is a good description, so she gives them other names. Like, her main neighbor she calls Oddball, and another neighbor she calls Bigfoot, and she just in general, like, everything she names differently, which is kind of a cute way of looking at the world. Yeah, so I'm really, really liking it so far. The back cover, I wish I had the book with me right now. The back cover says that this book set off like political like discussions in Poland. Like, wait, I have it here. Yeah, it caused a genuine political uproar in Poland. And I'm really want to finish the book and then dig into why and what about it. At the moment, I wouldn't say this book is particularly political, but I'm obviously not Polish, so I don't know what Polish politics look like. Maybe animal rights is a huge topic for them. The other thing I'm really liking about the book is the atmosphere. It's very wintry, honestly, not very fall. It takes place over the course of a few months in the winter while she's looking after her neighbors' houses, because most of her neighbors, that's like their second house that they only go to get away from the city during the summer, so they're not there in the winter, but she lives all year round, so she kind of checks on the houses. So there's a lot of really beautiful descriptions of like the landscape and the winter and the snow. Let me see if I can find. Here, the winter does a beautiful job of wrapping everything in white cotton wool and shortens the day as much as possible, so that if you make the mistake of staying up too late at night, you might awake in the gloom of the following afternoon, which, I frankly admit, has been happening to me more and more often since last year. Here the sky hangs over us dark and low, like a dirty screen, on which the clouds are fighting fierce battles. That's what our houses are for, to protect us from the sky. Otherwise, it would pervade the very inside of our body, where, like a little ball of glass, our soul is sitting, if such a thing exists. So beautiful. I really like this main character, and I'm really excited to finish this book. I'm gonna go on a walk while it's still nice out and peaceful, and I'm feeling very sleepy, so I think I might stop and get a chai on my way. Finished driving Plow over the bones of the dead last night, and just wow, this book was really, really good. The ending was, I expected it, but it was so well done and written that I really, really enjoyed it. I'm working through tabbing it and annotating a little bit more now. I did spend some time last night after I finished it looking up kind of the reception in Poland, because I was interested in the fact that it caused a genuine political uproar, according to this cover. And I can see that towards the end of the novel, there was like a discussion of hunting and how hunting is intertwined in the Catholic Church. Tokerzuk makes some arguments about how illogical that is, some criticism of the Catholic Church, which I think is what the kind of controversy towards this book was. It's interesting because it's like a crime novel and there's like a murder mystery element to it, but it's not as like engaging as maybe a traditional crime novel is, where like there's a lot of plot and there's a lot of like events happening that's really propelling the story forward. You're kind of just wandering around with our main character as she's going about her life, and as she muses on her own philosophies. She's deeply into astrology. Again, she's an animal rights activist. She has a lot of other kind of theories about the way the world works, the way people are. She's chronically ill, so dealing with her pains as they come and go and heavily like impair her ability to function. And she also is clearly like depressed a lot of the time. She spends a lot of the book musing on her own death, the inevitability of death, the pointlessness of life. So it's definitely a very slow, like in-depth look into Janina's, who's the main character, her perspective on the world. I thought it was really, really interesting to like sit into her head. She's a very compelling main character. Yeah, I just was kind of enraptured by the way she told this story. I'm not like sure that it's for everybody though. I think if you want, even though it's very mysterious and a little ominous at times, the main character and the atmosphere are really like the driving forces in this book. So if you don't like something more musing, more subtle, I don't think this one is for you. But that's okay, because it is for me. And that just about wraps up this vlog. I really liked kind of documenting my opinions on books as I was reading them and like what spoke out to me while I was reading. So that was fun. I am really curious what you guys all think of this type of video. If maybe you want to see more blogs or just stick to more sit and talk book recommendations. Yeah, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Happy reading!